Algebra might sound intimidating, but it's like a secret code that unlocks a world of possibilities. When you first hear the word algebra, you might think of complex equations and endless numbers. But in reality, algebra is all around us, and we use it more often than we realize. We use it every day without even realizing it. Whether you're calculating the total cost of groceries, figuring out how much time you need to get ready in the morning, or even splitting a bill with friends, algebra is at play. Remember figuring out how many candies you could buy with your allowance? That's algebra in action. You are using basic algebraic principles to determine how to maximize your spending. Algebra is simply a way to solve problems using letters and symbols, just like a secret language. These symbols and letters stand in for numbers and quantities, making it easier to work with unknowns and variables. These letters and symbols represent numbers, and they help us find missing information or solve complex puzzles. For example, if you know the total cost of items and the cost of one item, you can use algebra to find out the cost of the other items. Once you learn this language, you'll be surprised how often you use it. From calculating distances on a road trip to adjusting a recipe, algebra is a tool that helps us make sense of the world. Imagine you're baking a cake, and the recipe calls for twice the amount of flour as sugar. You need to figure out the exact proportions to ensure your cake turns out perfectly. Without even knowing it, you're using algebra. You're applying the concept of ratios and proportions to get the right balance of ingredients. You're figuring out the exact amount of flour needed based on the amount of sugar you have. This is just one of the many ways algebra helps us in our daily lives, making tasks easier and more efficient. Let's break down the language of algebra. We'll start with variables. Think of a variable like a container holding a secret number. We usually represent them with letters like X, Y, or Z. The cool thing about variables is that they can change, just like the amount of sugar in our cake recipe can change. Now let's talk about constants. These are like the reliable friends of algebra. They always stay the same. Constants are the numbers we already know, like 1, 5, or 100. They provide a solid foundation for our algebraic expressions. Think of it this way. Variables are like chameleons, changing their colors, values, depending on the situation, while constants are like rocks, steadfast and unchanging. Equations are the heart of algebra. They form the foundation upon which the entire subject is built. Without equations, algebra would be like a house without a frame, lacking structure and coherence. They are like mathematical sentences that show two things are equal. These sentences can be simple or complex, but they all serve the same purpose: to express a relationship between different quantities. You can spot them by the equal sign connecting two sides. This equal sign is a powerful symbol, indicating that the value on the left side is the same as the value on the right side. For example, x plus 5 equals 10 is an equation. This simple equation tells us that when we add 5 to a certain number, the result is 10. It tells us that whatever value x represents, when you add 5 to it, you get 10. This is a fundamental concept in algebra, where we often solve for unknown values. Think of an equation like a balanced scale. Just as a scale must be balanced to function correctly, both sides of an equation must be equal. Both sides must have the same weight to be balanced. If one side is heavier, the scale tips, and the balance is lost. In our example, x plus 5 on one side of the scale must weigh the same as 10 on the other side. This visual representation helps us understand the concept of equality in equations. Just like a detective, our goal is to solve the mystery and find the value of x that makes the equation true. This process involves logical thinking and problem-solving skills. This process of figuring out the unknown is what makes algebra exciting. It's like embarking on a journey where each step brings you closer to uncovering the hidden truth. The thrill of solving an equation and finding the correct value of x is immensely satisfying. Algebra challenges our minds and encourages us to think critically, making it a subject that is both intellectually stimulating and rewarding. To decode equations, we perform operations on both sides of the equal sign. But there's a catch: we must maintain balance. Whatever we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other side. It's like adding or removing weight from our balanced scale. Think of it like this: if we add 2 to the left side of the scale, we must also add 2 to the right side to keep it balanced. The same rule applies to subtraction, multiplication, and division. By performing the same operations on both sides, we isolate the variable and reveal its true value, just like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Section 5. Unlocking the mystery solving for x. In this section we will delve into the fundamental concept of solving for x, a cornerstone of algebra. Understanding how to isolate x in an equation is crucial for solving more complex problems later on. Let's solve a simple equation together. This will help us grasp the basic principles that we can apply to more complicated equations. Imagine we have the equation x plus 3 equals 8. This is a linear equation, one of the simplest forms of algebraic equations. Our mission is to find the value of x that makes this equation true. Essentially, we're looking for the number that, when added to 3, gives us 8. To do this, we need to get x by itself on one side of the equal sign. Remember the balance scale? In algebra, maintaining balance is key. Whatever we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other to keep it balanced. To get x alone, we need to remove the 3 from the left side. This is done by performing the inverse operation of addition, which is subtraction. We can do this by subtracting 3. Subtraction will cancel out the positive 3 on the left side of the equation, but remember we must also subtract 3 from the right side to maintain balance. This ensures that the equation remains true and balanced. This gives us x plus 3 minus 3 equals 8 minus 3. Simplifying this, we see that the 3's on the left side cancel each other out. Simplifying both sides, we get x equals 5. We've unlocked the mystery. The equation now reads x equals 5, which means that 5 is the value that makes the original equation true. The value of x that makes the equation true is 5. This fundamental process of isolating x can be applied to more complex equations, making it an essential skill in algebra. Section 6. Addition and subtraction in equations. When solving equations with addition or subtraction, our goal is to isolate the variable by performing the opposite operation. If we see addition, we subtract. If we see subtraction, we add. For example, in the equation x plus 4 equals 9, we subtract 4 from both sides to get x equals 5. Similarly, in the equation y minus 2 equals 6, we add 2 to both sides to get y equals 8. Remember, always perform the same operation on both sides of the equal sign to maintain the balance of the equation. Think of it like adjusting the weights on a scale to keep it level. Section 7. Multiplication and division in equations. Just like with addition and subtraction, we use opposite operations to solve equations with multiplication or division. If we see multiplication, we divide. If we see division, we multiply. For example, in the equation 2x equals 10, we divide both sides by 2 to get x equals 5. Similarly, in the equation z divided by 4 equals 3, we multiply both sides by 4 to get z equals 12. Again, the key is to maintain balance by performing the same operation on both sides of the equal sign. Imagine you're cutting a pie into equal slices. You wouldn't cut one side in half and leave the other side whole. Section 8. Practice makes perfect. Congratulations. You've learned the basics of algebra. Remember, the key to mastering algebra is practice. The more you practice solving equations, the more comfortable and confident you'll become. Think of it like riding a bike. At first, it might feel wobbly and unfamiliar, but with practice, it becomes second nature. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are valuable learning opportunities. Embrace the challenge and enjoy the journey of exploring the world of algebra. Section 9. Conclusion: Embracing the world of algebra. Algebra might seem like a daunting subject at first, but it's an incredibly powerful tool that opens doors to endless possibilities. From solving everyday problems to pursuing advanced careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, algebra is the foundation. Remember, algebra is like a puzzle, and like any puzzle, it can be solved with patience, practice, and the right approach. So, embrace the challenge, keep those brain muscles working, and watch as the world of algebra unfolds before you.